Hi, Mike from Heartland Pergolas, demonstrating how to attach your rafters down to your beam. The first thing you're going to want to do is check your plans and determine how many rafters you have. In this case, we've got a 10-foot wide pergola roof, and that has 4 rafters. If you remember from before, the spacing from the outside of our post to the outside of our post was 96 inches. So we're going to lay our tape measure up there just to verify that nothing's changed. Set the end at 96 inches. The end of 96 inches here should line up exactly with this column on top. We're going to make a pencil mark right there. We're going to come in 2 inches. We're going to make a pencil mark there. We're going to put an X over top of that. That's the location of rafter number 1. We're going to do the same thing at the other end of the beam, right here at 96 inches. Make a pencil mark there. We come in 2 inches, make a pencil mark there, and make an X. Now those two spaces, from the center of one to the center of the other, should measure 94 inches. Now since we have 4 rafters, that's going to give us 1 rafter on the outside, 1 rafter on the other outside, and 2 in the middle. There should be 3 evenly spaced increments. If we have 94 inches on center, we divide that by 3, that should come to 31 1/3 inches. Now 1/3 inches is 5/16, so I'm going to come and put my tape measure on the center of this mark, come in 31 5/16 and make another mark right there. Now that's my center. I'm going to go out to 62 5/8. That's the center of my other rafter. Now, I like to cheat. I'll just make this real easy. I come back here and I'll put that mark at 1 inch. I'll make a line here. I'll make a line at 2 inches, and an X marks the center. Same thing here. A line at 1 inch, a line at 2 inches, and an X marks the center. I'm going to make sure that these increments are transferred perfectly to the back side of the beam before I go about the next step of drilling out all my rafters. One note, not every single pergola will have that same exact spacing. Depending upon the size of your pergola kit, the spacings may vary accordingly. So check your plan or sit down with a calculator and do the math to make sure that your pergola spacing is beautifully done before you put screws down through your pergola beams. Once you've got that done, we're going to want to measure your pergola rafters. We did this ahead of time. We know that they're 120 inches long. The next thing I'm going to check is the measurement from one edge of my beam to the other. In this case, it's 95 inches. These beams are set just a little inside of that column cap. I'm going to verify that the back side here is 96 inches, so then I know my pergola is square. In this case, it turned out almost perfect. We're off a 16th. That's good enough for me. So here we got 95 inches. I know my rafters are 120 inches long. So that means I have 25 inches of overhang between one end and the other. Now I'm going to split that overhang in half, and that will give me 12.5 inches of overhang on this side and 12.5 inches of overhang on this side. So I'll come to where my rafters are laying, I'll get my tape measure out, and I'll measure out 12.5 inches. That mark is going to denote the face of my beam. I'm going to come in 1 inch from that to 13.5 inches. I'm going to make another mark. That X is where I'm going to drill my first hole. Now I know from measuring with my tape measure that the center of one center of one beam to the other beam is exactly 7 inches. So as soon as I know the center mark here, I'm going to measure out 7 inches, just like that, and mark the center there. Now I use a speed square because it's a little quicker to mark all these together, and as long as they're lined up, this works just fine. Set my speed square there. I'm going to line down the center, set my speed square here, and repeat. Now I'm ready to drill. For this step, I use the same step bit that I used to drill out the aluminum in my beams. And I don't care how big the hole is. It's okay if it's a big nasty hole because it's going to get covered up with the purlin holders eventually. So the bigger the better, the easier it is to get your fasteners down through that hole. So I'll take my vary bit. Drill out 1. I usually drill out all the rafters at the same time, but to save a little time today, we'll skip that part of the step. So once your rafters are drilled, you go ahead and set them up on your pergola roof. In the case here, set them right there. Grab my fasteners. Now, I always double check to make sure I got the right fasteners. This says rafter to beam. So I grab a few of those, stuff them in my pocket, and away we go. I'm going to double check to make sure my rafters lined up perfectly on my beam, and the holes are directly over top of the beam I want to drill down into. Do the same thing down here. I'll go ahead and I'll take my drill with my driver extension and a stainless self-tapping drill. Just sticks right on the end of that. I'll go ahead and I'll push right down into. There's one. Now I'll repeat that step for the back of the beam and lay out each of the other rafters on top of the beam and repeat that step until the rafters are all installed properly. For more information about this pergola process, you can check out our website at heartlandpergolas.com and download our installation instructions. Thanks.